You understood everything? Okay, we're up to verse number 59. For those who weren't here, we just had a general introduction to the Sthitaprajna section, and we did the first few verses. This Sthitaprajna, just to give a quick review, is just one of many different prototypes, we can say, of God-realized soul. And this is one which really emphasizes this idea of calmness, equanimity, peacefulness and everything. We'll see many different types. We'll see those who sing and dance in ecstasy, and we'll see those who act like crazy people. We'll see some who are very childlike in nature. We'll see all different types there. This is one particular type. And when we look at someone like Swami Vivekananda, we'll see that he has all of these qualities, but in addition to that, also has a very tender heart, and can weep along with other people and can rejoice along with others. Very human heart. Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Swamiji, all the direct disciples, they're very human type of personality, so we can relate to them. But at the same time, that light of divinity was shining so clearly to them that this is the special charm of the Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, all the direct disciples, that their personality was so attractive. And in addition to, of course, the tremendous heights of God realization. So we shouldn't think when we read this, the descriptions of the Sthitaprajna, that every saint from every tradition will be exactly like this. There will be a tremendous amount of variety that way. So verse 59, Vishaya vanivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavajam rasopiyasya param drashtva nivartate. This we get the example. This will be the distinction between when we do something as a practice, and when this becomes something natural. So suppose our goal in life is to be able to live without eating any food. Okay, that's my goal. I don't want to have any hankering after any food. So say one particular type of food. So I'll give up eating sweets. I love sweets, but I'll give up eating sweets. I'll do it as a spiritual practice that way. So the Vishaya, that will be the sweets. These vanivartante, these they'll disappear from my diet. So for someone who is niraharasya, so someone who is restraining, abstaining from food, so I've given up sweets. But rasavajam, but the desire, the taste for sweets won't disappear just because I've decided not to eat them. So that means that I can give up all of my worldly desires in trying to lead a spiritual life, but that doesn't mean that these desires will be completely eliminated. When are they eliminated? Param drashtva nivartate, after we realize the Supreme. So we have the same thing I mentioned in Mundaka Upanishad verse, this tasman drashte parapare. When we have the vision of that, which is everything, from the transcendent reality to the immanent universe, when we realize that, then that's when the permanent change comes. That's when all the doubts are removed, all the desires disappear, all the karma gets burned, and everything. Now, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't make an attempt. So, what do? We're stuck. Huh? If we say that if I stop eating sweets, I'll still have the desire for sweets, so I should just eat sweets anyhow. Then we're stuck in the same place. So, what we have to do in spiritual life is try to figure out what things are problematic for us. So we have blood sugar. We're slightly diabetic. We know that we'll get in trouble eating sweets. So even though the longing for sweets will still be there, I'm going to stop taking them. Gradually that desire will become less and less and less also. You know, there are many people who can't take salt in their diet. And in the beginning everything is completely tasteless. Then after a long time they'll tell you, I never tasted vegetables before. I never knew the real flavor of them. Yeah. Now if you put salt on it, I won't be able to eat it. So gradually this change will take place. So in the beginning, even if the desire for worldly things is still there, that will slowly disappear if we replace it with something tastier. So this is a statement that's being made, but there's also a teaching behind it. The objects recede from the abstinent person. So somebody who is nirahara, someone who is fasting. Right? So they're fasting, that means that the food won't be there. That won't be there. But they'll still be thinking of food all day long, but then there are people, they love to fast. In the beginning it's a real trial and a torture, and after a while they get some pleasure and they start to enjoy it. So this is what we have to do, but at the same time not just as a self-denial or self-torture. What's the real goal here? We're trying to realize something higher. So this is that distinction between what we do as a spiritual practice and what we do automatically as the result of realization. So if we want things to fall off, this is what happens. Things will automatically fall away from us. We don't have to do anything special. But how do we reach the point where they'll fall off? If we think it's by just fulfilling desire and increasing and everything, that won't happen. So we have to make some conscious effort to restrain ourselves from these things. Now we'll get other verses that will talk about it more, but this idea of not placing ourselves in the midst of objects of desire. This is a very important idea. We have two ways of trying to attack this thing. One, people will say that I have a desire for something, I can't simply withdraw from the world, I'll be faced with these things all the time, let me, in the midst of everything, let me restrain myself. This is one method. And then the other method is that I won't subject myself to these objects of desire. So suppose someone has a drinking problem. Then what do? They can either say that let me be in the midst of everyone drinking. If I really want to be strong in everything, then that's the only way to do it. But it doesn't work. Because constantly with the temptation, the mind is very weak. So what Sri Ramakrishna recommends is that we protect ourselves. That means that we withdraw from the company of people who are doing things that will be a bad example for us and everything. This is what he means when he says that when this plant is just a sprout, that we'll put a little hedge around it, a little fence around it, we have to protect it. So that protection is not allowing ourselves to be in the company of those who can influence us in a negative way. Keeping holy company and all of that. Then, when it becomes a big strong tree, then we can take everything down and we can even tie an elephant to it. And it won't affect the tree at all when we get strong. But in the beginning we have to protect ourselves a little bit. So Sri Ramakrishna, he emphasizes so much this holy company, and that also means giving up the company of those that will simply keep these old desires awake within us. The real problem in spiritual life is that part of our mind will say, I have no desire for that old life anymore. And the other part of the mind will say, it's not going to be so easy. I still want those things. There's this gap. This is the problem in spiritual life. That I've had my complete conversion. I want God and God alone. I don't care for worldly enjoyment. The lower mind will say, you fellow, you may think that, but I still want to enjoy the world. So this is that fight that takes place between the old samskaras that don't want to die. They'll become stronger. They'll fight. They'll fight us. And then there's this higher mind which really doesn't care for those things. But we only have one mind, really, not two. So there's always this tug of war. Which one will will out? So we'll see. Sri Ramakrishna says that the main thing will be to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves in a situation where the temptation isn't there. If we can avoid that, then we don't have to exert our willpower so much. And gradually the taste for these things will disappear. Rasavajam. So the taste is still remaining here. Rasavajam, that means that we've given up the food, but the whole mind is thinking about the food. How I miss it, how I used to love eating sweets so much and everything. But, as I say, if we replace it with something, so now we know the taste of food without salt in it, and we see how, I can really taste it, it's really good. So then that gradually transformation takes place. So Shankaracharya's commentary, in the absence of full realization, there can be no eradicating of the hankering, this longing for things. So this is why we have to, the emphasis here is really making the mind strong. But Thakur's emphasis is different. Don't leave it up to willpower, then replace it with something tastier, something more enjoyable. So that's what we get from holy company and spiritual practice. Spiritual practice, this is another thing that is an acquired taste. You know that expression, an acquired taste? That there's something, the first time we taste it, we say, it doesn't taste very good. Somebody says, keep trying it. It's an acquired taste. Like that. So many who in the West who have never had Indian food, the first time they'll taste this korela. It's so bitter. It's terribly bitter. Then you eat it and say, yeah, but there's some joy in the bitterness. And then after a while, it's fantastic. So spiritual life and spiritual practice is like that. So they say this sattvic happiness in the beginning is vishamiva. It's like poison. Pariname amarata upamam. And it becomes like nectar at the end. So this is when we know that we've made progress in spiritual life. When we look forward to our spiritual practice, we get some joy out of spiritual practice. Really, spiritual life without spiritual practice is no spiritual life. We may say that yes, I'm a spiritual person, that this is God alone, but unless we do some practice, sadhana, spiritual practice, we won't get a taste. We won't get a taste for it. And this taste, the taste for it means that this longing grows. Sri Ramakrishna had one principle, one teaching that goes through everything. This is the one thing that ties everything together. The Vyakulata. It ties everything together. Why do we want holy company? It increases longing for God. Why do we do spiritual practice? It increases longing for God. Why do we go into solitude? It increases longing for God. For him, this vyakulata, this tremendous longing for God, this actually agony of the soul, the tremendous suffering almost, anguish of heart for God, is the real causal mechanism. If you look at his teaching and you want to find out where's the real cause and effect, what is it? What leads to God realization? Is it meditation? No. Is it devotion? No. None of these things. They're all secondary. They're all secondary. The primary cause in Thakur's teaching is Vakulata. When the heart is yearning for God realization, that's what brings it about. That's the final step. He talked about all the steps. Well, the very last one, Vakulata. And now we're in the middle of the night. It's nighttime, and we're waiting for the sun to rise. So we're doing all of our spiritual practice and everything. But what's the first clue that the sun is about to rise? We see the little pink. This Arunodaya, he says. This little pink. And then we know that within a few minutes we'll see the sun. He said, what is that pink color? Vakulata. Yeah. So everything we do is meant for getting a taste, this rasa. Huh?
This is a nice example.
Yeah. Nami ruchi. Huh? We have to develop a taste for the name of God. A taste. Aswadan. We have so many examples that involve taste. That just is something that tastes so delicious. That repeating the name of God should be like that. Nami ruchi. This is one of the teachings of Chaitanya Deva. Yeah. That one of the songs says, what is this sickness that I have? I have no taste for the name of God. So just the name of God, not just that, for meditation, for prayer, all of our spiritual practices. We have to develop a taste for it. How do we develop a taste for it? No, that comes. That's the result of it. We develop a taste for it by abhyasa. By doing it over and over and over again. Holy company, of course, we have to have. What is the value of holy company? We see that these things are real. We see a living example in front of us. We see that someone has, through spiritual practice, through grace, whatever, has attained to a state that is bringing that person tremendous joy and peace and calmness, and we can feel it. It's tangible. And we think to ourselves, how to attain that? And we get something. They say spirituality is something that's like lighting one lamp with another one. It's not taught, it's caught. They use that expression sometimes. It's caught. It's tangibly passed from one realized soul. These are powerhouses, these realized souls. And not even a realized soul. Some of it was deeply spiritual, established in spiritual life. We ourselves can't judge who's a God-realized soul. We only can recognize that there's some who have received tremendous benefit and fruits from a life of spiritual practice and a life of purity and everything. And this is what gives us that faith that it's true. That spirituality can be attained, number one. Number two, that it's something that we want. It's something that will be a wonderful thing. One devotee who went to Sri Ramakrishna saw Thakur in Samadhi. He saw his face beaming with joy. And then he said to his friend, there was another man that claimed to have the Samadhi, and I went to see him, and it looked like his face was almost like he was in pain. He said, there was nothing, I felt nothing. No desire to be in the presence or to achieve something that now I see what joy comes from realization. You can see it in his face. So we have to have that type of holy company. This holy company, this will increase this ruchi, rasa, aswadan, this tremendous attraction for spiritual life. But we have to practice. We have to abhyasa. We have to practice. We have to abhyasa. We have to have a little bit of vairagya, and we have to have anuraga. These are the three things. When Arjuna complains to Sri Krishna that he can't control his mind, he says these Abhyasa yoga is number one. You have to give yourself some time, practice, develop a taste for these things. Then Vairagya. Then you have to have a little detachment from things. Don't run after desires all of the time. Then Sri Ramakrishna adds the third one. He says Vairagya doesn't simply mean detachment, it means attachment to God, Anuraga. So he completes the picture with that. Then verse 60, Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipashtitaha indriyani paramatini haranti prasabham manaha. Now, we will get the example. Whenever you see the central word he, it means we're going to get a reason for something. So the explanation will come. For indeed, now we explain why this we have to worry about this taste for the world, this taste for enjoyment. He says that this indriyani paramatini, these senses are very powerful. The senses are what will draw the mind outward rather than letting it turn inward. We're trying to realize that presence within, but we don't see it because the mind is always going outward. There are things that we want to see, there are things that we like to taste, there are things we want to enjoy, and so it's very powerful. This full of the world of sense objects and enjoyment and everything. There's something very, very powerful. And haranti prasabham manaha. They actually have this power to just steal, to rob, to pull us away. So they can take this mind of ours and it won't be under our control. See, the mind, we sometimes wonder how much control do we have over the mind, how much is the mind controlling us, and how much are we controlling the mind. Don't try to get too metaphysical about that, who is the we and who is the mind. This is just our understanding that the mind that's under our control is our friend. The mind that's not is our enemy, and we have to fight with it, and it'll snatch away every good intention that we have. Prasabham. It very, very strongly can do it. So, Yatato hyavikandu purushasya vipashtitaha. Even an intelligent person, even a person who is striving for God. We're not talking about it as an ordinary person. We're talking about a devotee. So it's not just your average fool on the street. We can say, oh yeah, they're running after things. Even us, we can say that we're being referred to here. This is our condition. That we have every good intention of saying that I'll sit for meditation. The mind, what could be more enjoyable than thinking of God? Huh? And next thing I know, I'm thinking of all sorts of other things. And what enjoyments, future enjoyments and past enjoyments. Both things, huh? And sometimes even bad experiences. That different slights, people have spoken, criticized us, insulted us, and we let the mind dwell on it. Why do we let the mind dwell on it? You know why? Enjoyment. Otherwise we wouldn't do it. The mind enjoys it. The mind enjoys thinking, what a horrible person. How could that person say that to me? Otherwise we won't think about it. There's some attraction to even that. And what do? We get angry all over again. Right? There's some enjoyment there, a very odd thing. But otherwise we won't think about it. So that means this mind has been snatched away. By these senses, that means even old things, old memories. All of these things will be included in that. So, for O son of Kunti, the turbulent organs. So the indriyas, this can be both Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas. This can be both these objects of the senses, and also we enjoy everything through our hands and feet, all of these other organs. even while he is striving diligently. So yati, we have this term yati for the meaning of sadhu. Who is a yati? Someone who is striving for God realization, the heart and soul. But this is what I say, I am striving heart and soul, but this old mind is not convinced. Not convinced yet that this world can give me some enjoyment and pleasure, and that why should I give it up? See, we have this idea, this vichara or viveka. What does viveka mean?
Consciousness.
Discrimination.
Okay, we use this word discrimination, not in the negative sense. Of course, discrimination, it has a very positive sense, a very negative sense. Discrimination in a negative sense means we judge people by external, superficial things. But the positive sense is that we have to be able to discriminate between what is helpful, what is not helpful, what is permanent, what is changing. This is the sadhasat vichara, this type of discrimination. Now, we have this illusion, most people have this illusion, that there's something absolute about this sense of discrimination. Right? That is based strictly on logic. That we can, if we shine the light of logic on something and we discriminate about it, we can see, yes, this thing will not bring anything other than momentary happiness. But it's not true. Our sense of discrimination is very much colored by our desires. And I only give the example of food, that we have a certain type of discrimination before we eat and a certain type after we eat. Right? After we eat, you say, no, I'm not going to do that again. It gives me indigestion. Momentary pleasure, I'm getting fat, it's bad for my health, all of that. There's no reason for me to keep doing it. I'll give it up. That's the discrimination after we eat. Before we eat, the discrimination is, one more time won't hurt. This life is short, so there'll be no enjoyment at all in this lifetime. I'll take some Pepto-Bismol or something, I'll get through the night. This is also discrimination. Right? So there's nothing absolute about that. We have to be very careful about these things. This is why we need the example of these great souls to find out what real discrimination means, real viveka or vichara. So this is giving us the problem. The next verse will give us the answer. So what do? We're sincere people. We're really striving for something higher. We're trying to not be at the mercy of this lower mind and these desires and the external objects and all of that. I started talking about this, someone was asking me about free will. Today it's a very interesting topic. How much free will do we have? And if we look at this Gita, very, very interesting the way it explains free will. It's not a question of yes or no. Do we have free will or don't we have free will? It's a question of degree. And the lowest degree is when we have no control over the mind. Now this is, Arjuna asks a question, a brilliant question, that he asked Sri Krishna that why do we do things that we know we shouldn't do? And then he says, aniccan, that we have no desire to do it. Baladiva niyojita, as if by force someone is making us do it. Now who's making us do it? The lower mind. Right? So what causes us that to happen? So Sri Krishna says, kama, krodha. So these passions, the rajas, all of that. Now if that's true, then the degree to which we're free from rajas and the lower desires and everything is the degree to which we have some freedom. So the more we can purify the mind, the more we're not at the mercy of desires, the more we can decide things in terms of this real viveka, real discrimination, the more freedom that we have. Now we have another verse that says that even the jnani, even the wise person, is restrained, is forced to act according to his nature. So nigraha kim karisiti. Very interesting. Nigraha kim karisiti. It's supposed to be a rhetorical question. Then what's the use of restraint? What's the use of even trying? We all act in accordance with our nature. But I won't take it as a rhetorical question. I say, no, we have to really ask ourselves, is there any value to it? And the answer is yes. Because when Arjuna asked Sri Krishna, he uses the same word, nigraha, that I find it impossible to control the mind. And then Sri Krishna says, no, it can be done. So that means that there's some value to it, but we have to understand. So what compels us to act in a certain way? Our nature. Prakriti, our nature. He says, and for the person who has no control over the mind, then they have no control over the decisions that they make. Now, someone who attains the jnana of anapi, says even for the wise person, is a different story, because then their nature is pure sattva. And then their nature is one with God, we can say. And then their will and God's will, we can say that there's some oneness there. So they'll act in accordance with their own nature, but there's no lack of freedom there. Acting in accordance with their own nature means out of goodness and kindness and compassion. And they won't make a false step. Does that mean that they're not free to make a false step? They may be free, but why would they want to? Automatically they'll do the right thing. So this sets up this question that here we're sincere people. We're striving for God realization, and yet we're at the mercy of this lower mind. So what do we do? Then we get the next verse. Tani sarvani. Tani sarvani means that all of these indriyanis. It'll go back to the previous verse. Tani sarvani samyamya. So we have to practice control. Now, it's not a very good answer for us. Huh? How do I control the mind? By controlling the mind. Huh? I can't control the mind, I control the mind. Yeah. Samyamya. Yukta asita matparaha. Now we're getting a little something. So yukta, that means that we have to have a concentrated mind. We have to be very serious about this. Now matparaha. Shankaracharya, he says, concentrated on me as the supreme. Now this is a standard. And in his commentary he says matparaha is thinking that I am not different from him. He'll always bring in this non-dualistic idea, but actually matparaha is very beautiful. Manmana, we have all different ways of putting this. Matparaha. It means that that what is the highest goal in my life? What is supreme to me? What is the most important thing in my life? So Krishna is saying that we have to feel that God realization, or knowledge, or wisdom, or whatever our conception of God is. If it's Krishna, if it's Sri Ramakrishna, whatever it is, that's paramount. That's the supreme in my life. So here's a case where we're not just trying to control the mind, but we're sitting and giving it something else. I'm not just sitting saying that, no, I won't think of that, I won't desire that, I won't do that. I'm sitting and trying to fix my mind on something which is more important to me, which I consider the highest goal of life. Matparaha. Vashehi yasya indriyani tashiprajna. So, Vashehi yasya indriyani. So, whose senses are under control? That's the Sthitaprajna. His senses are under control. That means the mind is under control. We're not going to make a big distinction between here the senses and the mind, because it's the senses which are making the mind turbulent. So, senses under control, that means that if the senses are saying, oh look there, that's a nice thing, I say no, I won't look there, that means the mind. That means that I'm trying to control the mind. So we get the first clue here that we have to practice self-control, and we also have to very positively have some higher goal in life. So So Gita is a fantastic book. We have this Manmana Bhavamad Bhakto Madhyaji Mamnaraskuru. So many beautiful ideas. Look upon God as the one thing to be attained, the highest goal in life, the one thing to sacrifice everything to devote the whole life to. If we have that attitude, then the mind will come under our control. We won't care so much for other things. So it's very important, matpara, and then vashe yasya indriyani. So the senses have to be vashe, they have to be under our control. That means that I don't have to do anything that the mind tells me to do that I don't want to do. I don't have to. Right? I don't. I can say no. The mind will say, it's okay. Sleep a little later this morning. Huh? Is it good to get up in the morning and just sit and your head will be going back and forth? Isn't it better to sleep a little longer? Your meditation may be shorter, but you won't be so tired. Don't listen to that mind. We get in bad habits that way. He said, no. Then you rascal, you shut up. I'm going to get up the same time every morning no matter what. After a while, then you'll see that this is the helpful thing. Don't try to trick me. Even Holy Mother, she had that experience.
Yeah.
It was for our sake, of course, not for her sake. She didn't need any of that. But she wasn't feeling very well, feeling a little sleepy, so she slept in a little bit. And then she saw the next day also, the tendency of the mind was even stronger. Yes, you did it yesterday, no harm, you can do it. After a while she said, then I realized this wretched mind can play all these tricks on us. And then I said, no, that I would be very firm, I'm not going to listen to that mind, I'm going to get up. And she would get up at 3 in the morning and everything and sit for meditation and everything. So we have to know when this mind is our friend and when it's not our friend, when to listen to it. This mind that matures, this mind that is under our control, not only is our friend but is our guru. Sri Ramakrishna says that. There will come a stage where the mind itself is the guru. The mind itself will tell us what's right and what's wrong. But in the beginning, this mind will trick us. This mind will trick us. It'll pretend to be our friend. It won't. It'll be the fox in the chicken coop. Yeah, don't worry, let me inside, I'll protect all the chickens. Yeah, and it'll eat them all up. So, concentrate, controlling all of them. That means all of the senses and the mind. See, the mind is also a sense, antakarana. They treat the mind as the inner sense. The others are all external. Why is it an inner sense? Because all of the senses present something to the mind. So even if it's in the form of thought, that's also an inner sense, and the thought is the object of the sense. It's presenting it to consciousness, and we're aware of some thought or some desire or some emotion. For the wisdom of one whose organs are under control, indriyas, becomes steadfast. So another example, this is the Sthitaprajna, and a lesson for us. To me, the most important part of all of this is this matparaha. We have to have some very strong sense of what is our priority in life, what is the purpose of life, what is the thing that we want to accomplish in life. And if we decide what I want to accomplish in life is to achieve something permanent. I want to know who I am, I want to know the nature of the reality. I want to get rid of all these false ideas I have about myself. I don't want to live a life just a lie. At the end of my life, I'll look back and say I haven't achieved anything. I have some real goal. I want to know the truth. I want to realize the inner divinity. There's some very strong feeling about that. This is the matpara. It doesn't have to be simply with personal God. I look upon Krishna as the greatest deity. It can be even just for the truth. This is matpara. This idea. Now, we get two verses that are very important verses. And these verses actually give us a list, step by step by step by step by step, how something very innocent in the beginning can lead to worse and worse consequences, and if taken to a very extreme point, we can find whole life can be destroyed. So it says, dhyayato vishayankumsa sangasteshu upajayate. So dhyayata literally means meditating on something. So this means letting the mind dwell on something. Now, if we think about something once or twice, it's okay, but it captures the mind. Something captures the mind, and we think about it day and night. Then what will happen? We won't think about it day and night unless it's something that we really would like to have. Huh? That we'd like to experience it, enjoy it, own it, something like that. So this dhyayata, we're thinking about this, some type of vishaya, some type of an object. And an object doesn't have to be a physical object. It can be, say, a job. Huh? I have this tremendous desire to be CEO of this organization, and so day and night we're thinking about it, and it's worming its way inside, and becomes a very strong type of desire. So what happens? Sangas teshu upajayate. Then this attachment for that particular thing or those things, that will begin to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So now, look at this. We're starting out with, we're blaming this tendency of the mind to dwell on something. And the worst part of this is that sometimes we do this in meditation. The very time when we're supposed to be thinking about God is the time when some very strong desire will be there. We'll find out, the whole half hour I was sitting, that the mind was actually thinking about this, how nice it would be if I could get this, or if I got this honor, or I got this promotion, or if I bought this new car, whatever it is. We find that we're in worse condition than the ordinary person who is thinking about it, but maybe doing other things this time. We're thinking about it with great concentration. The same type of concentration that we can't use for God, we can use for these sense objects and things like that. So this sangha, so this attachment grows. Then sangha, from sangha, so from attachment, we'll get this thing, each one will lead to the next, then from that something else will come. What comes from that? Sanjayate kamaha. So I'm attached to something, I should have it. Huh? I should have it. I want it. So then this desire comes. In the beginning, I'm just thinking that, this is a very attractive thing. Then I think, the mind really likes this thing. Then I think, wouldn't it be nice if I could own it, if I could have it, if I could experience it. So kama comes. Then kama, what happens from kama? Kama, from this desire, krodha. Now, why does anger come? Frustration. Suppose we realize that, no, I'm not going to get it, or that I should get it, I really deserve it. Why they gave this promotion to somebody else, I'm better than that person. Huh? Or if somebody else got that nice car, I really wanted that. So the anger comes. So this, of course, isn't the case with everything. This is a very extreme case that we're talking about. So krodha comes. Now, what happens from krodha? Krodhat bhavati samoha. Okay, so we know this, that anger will blind us. That we become blind with rage sometimes. Anger can really remove our ability to think clearly. Yeah? Think of the things that we say in anger that we don't want to say, we know we shouldn't say, we may even know that it's not true. It would be something just to hurt the other person, all sorts of things. There's some moha. So we really act out of delusion. Then some mohat, what happens to that? From that, smriti vibhramaha. So we completely lose our understanding, memory, literally, but we completely lose all the power of making any type of real decision or choice about anything. This smriti sometimes will mean that we forget who we really are also. That I am a grown-up human being. I have responsibilities in this world. I can't act like a child and be so angry at people and then lose all sensibility, say things I don't want to say. That means that I've forgotten who I am. So this then from this smriti bhramshat, what happens as a result of that? Buddhinasha. That means that whatever intelligence we had disappears. We act like idiots out of anger. And buddhinashat parashyati. We're gone. Like that. We're gone. It's extreme. We know that it doesn't happen all of the time with just some few particular things. Say people, we see this especially with those who want some position of power. Look at politicians. Look at politicians. There's such a tremendous desire to win an election, something like that, what happens, this desire comes and they can't let go of it, and then this moha comes, anger comes if they can't get it, and they're willing to do anything. They lose all sense of discrimination, they'll do bribery, they'll do all sorts of things like that, and all sense of any decency, understanding, everything is gone and destroyed.
I think anger make you crazy.
Yeah. Really, anger is the worst of all the passions. It really is. Anger is poison. It poisons the mind. Right. Anger is the worst of all of them. See, the kama, there's a very interesting section from Vidyadharana Upanishad, I think. There's a da section. There's the lightning, the thunder goes da. Anyhow, it talks about this kama, krodha, lobha. And kama, it says, is the difficulty, the problem that has to be dealt with by the devas. So that's considered the least problematic. And then lobha for human beings. And krodha will be for the demons. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the worst. That's the worst. All three of them are gates to hell. We read in Gita, but this anger really, those who are susceptible to anger, they'll say things that are just unbelievable. The things that people can say out of anger. Yeah. And it means, and we know that they're sensible people, otherwise they would never think to do anything like that. And just to hurt somebody else. Right? So, but the important thing here is that it all begins when we allow the mind to dwell on something. It's possible, yes. If I do this and I do that, yes. I could one day become President of the United States. And then we start everything. This is a downward cycle. If that desire becomes so great, I can become a billionaire. I can become a billionaire. How do I do it? I cheat a few people here and there. Yeah, it can be done. But it all traced back to this idea, dhyayata, that I'm allowing the mind to dwell on it. So this is in the case of a person who dwells on objects, there arises attachment for them. From attachment goes hankering, from hankering springs anger. From anger follows delusion, from delusion, failure of memory, from failure of memory, the loss of understanding. Buddhinasha, from the loss of understanding, he perishes. Now, the relationship between desire and thought. This is a very interesting thing. Now, normally we would say that the desire is responsible for us thinking about something. This is modern psychology. That this desire is something deep within. We have the desire, that's why the mind is thinking about it. This is reversing it and saying because we're thinking about it, the desire is there. Now actually, both are true. But the emphasis here is because we're thinking about it, the desire gets stronger and stronger. Now, in your version, that Swami Swarupananda's version, is it here? He quotes a verse from, I think, Sthitaprajna Mahabharata. It's a very, very beautiful verse. Is it there? Kama janami te mulam sankalpa tvamhi jayase. Maybe it'll come up in a different place. This is a very, very important verse. So, kama janami te mulam. Desire, I know your root. Sankalpa tvamhi jayase. You're born of sankalpa. I'll get to sankalpa in a minute. Nahi sankalpa yashyami tena mena bhavishyati. Sankalpa is this tendency of the mind to think about something and to then imagine what it would be like to have it, to scheme about how to get it, all of that. Now it says, "O desire, I know your root." The root of desire is this tendency of the mind to think about it. Now we would say the exact opposite. Desire will be the root, and because that desire is there, then it causes the mind to think about it. That will be the obvious thing, right? But the genius of this is the practical part about it, that by thinking about it, we're allowing this desire to manifest and get stronger and stronger and stronger. And if we want to root out desire, we can't do it. We can't do it by somehow digging deep into the subconscious, and we find it and we tear it out and we put it and we throw it in the fire. We can't do that. It'll remain there. We can push it down. There's a type of repression, and then it'll come back again. There's something called sublimation, which we're trying to do. But what this is saying is that if we don't think about it, then it won't have any scope. And it's like a little plant that we say, I simply won't water it. It'll die on its own. Mm-hmm. So there's a beautiful psychology behind this, that we're going to trace everything back, not to the desire itself, because that we have no access to it really. We're going to trace it back to the tendency of the mind to think about it. And we're going to attack the problem from there. So let me be very strong, and when the mind starts thinking and imagining, the sankalpa. Sankalpa is scheming. The mind is imagining, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have this, to have that, and everything? I'll say, no. Don't do that. Go back to matpara. Go back to think about what you want the mind to dwell on. Use your sense of discrimination. Understand, analyze it. Will it be helpful? What's it going to lead to? Understand this chain that will take place, and how it doesn't have a good end to it. So there's a very brilliant psychology here. We may say that it's very naive, that how do we get rid of the desire just by not thinking about it? We remove the fangs from it. We make it something, the remnant will remain of it, but it won't have any strength. We don't allow it to grow and become strong. So it's really a very, very thoughtful approach to take. So modern psychology will say, no, you have to dig deep into the psyche, you have to find what is the cause for this desire, how did it come about, was it trauma, this and that. We can never get to the root of all of that. It's too much. We may get some insight, and I'm not saying that this is not helpful psychoanalysis and all of that. But even if we know that, I was deprived of this in my childhood, that's why I have such a desire for it now, I had envy of my brothers and sisters, whatever it is. Even if we discover all that, that doesn't mean that we're free from it. But we have to realize that I get myself in trouble when I allow the mind to dwell on these things, dwelling on these things, that we can avoid it if we can fix the mind on something higher and understand that we're giving ourselves some enjoyment by thinking on things which are not helpful for us. Just like reliving some anger or something. It's a very distorted type of enjoyment that we get from it. It's really perverse. It's a very perverse type of enjoyment that we get when we relive some type of slight, that somebody insulted us, what they said to us, this and that, and yet the mind goes in that direction. There's something attracting the mind to that very often. Not everybody, but for many people. And the funny thing is that it happens in meditation sometimes. Sometimes it'll happen to me and I'll think, what are you doing? Huh? And I'll just say, forget it. Get out of my way. I didn't ask you to come, don't go there. We have to understand that things that come into the mind, we don't have to welcome them. We can recognize that for some reason this old memory decided to come up and disturb my mind, and I'm going to just say hello and goodbye. That's it. That I see this tendency of the mind to go back and relive it and think about it and everything, but whatever enjoyment there is in that is a very perverse enjoyment, and it's not what I want to do, so I forget it. Swami Turiyananda used to just say, right, do not enter when you're farting. Don't let these thoughts come up. They won't catch it in the beginning. The problem with this sankalpa is that if we don't catch it in the beginning, then it spirals out of control. So abhyasa yoga, abhyasa has two meanings. One is that we have to catch it very quickly. That as soon as we see the mind is strayed, we have to catch it very quickly. And the second thing is we have to bring the mind back. Our problem is twofold. One, we don't even notice when the mind gets out of control. And second, we think it's out of control. I'm kind of enjoying it. Let it stay out of control for a while. Next thing you know, our meditation time is over.
When these things will come during the meditation time, can we go back to the japa?
Of course.
That's what.
Of course. Whatever it is that will bring,
all these ideas, all these junk things are coming in the mind, then can I go back to japa?
There are lots of things. One thing is I find helpful is when these thoughts come into the mind, just tell yourself, this is just a vritti. This is not my thought. I didn't bring this up. I don't care about it. I'm not really thinking about it. That the mind itself is taking this form. It's a vritti. It's just a little wave on the mind. I'm watching it. I'm not identifying with it. I don't care about it. I don't like it. Just let it go.
There was a lot of dirty things.
Let it go. All sorts of things come up. Yeah. So don't be attached to. We shouldn't be attached to our thoughts. Yeah? Because they come uninvited. These things come uninvited. Now, the whole goal of meditation is to be able to think things that we decide to think about. Otherwise, during the day, thoughts come to us and desires come to us. At the time of meditation, we want to dictate to the mind. No. Now, the next half hour, however long we sit, this is what you're going to think about. You're going to repeat the mantra, and you're going to think about the Ishtadevata, and you're going to keep holy thoughts, and just going to do all of those things. That's what you're going to do, whether you like it or not. And after a while, you're going to like it. Trust me. You'll get a taste for it. You'll find great joy in it. So we have to convince the mind. We have to convince the mind by doing it. And then the mind develops a taste for it. So we have to tell the mind that you're getting some perverse enjoyment out of this. Thinking about these unreal things that took place long ago, or that are pipe dreams that may never happen, or if they do happen, they'll just make things worse for you. Don't think about them. Don't think about them. That somehow something deep in your psyche brought these to the surface, and don't even claim that these are my thoughts. Why don't claim ownership for them? Just observe them, watch them, and let them leave. A little blip on the screen.
That's right, don't enter.
Yeah. Or if they enter, just watch them. As if you're watching somebody else's mind. Yeah. I'm the witness. I'm the one observing all of this. Yeah. So this is a very important. These two verses are very important. These are very often pointed to, but we see, and this dhyayata, it's using this language meditation. It doesn't mean just in meditation. Just during the day, whenever we find the mind keeps being pulled in this direction. We have some desire for something, keeps being pulled there. But at the time of meditation, there's much more intensity to our thought. And so we have to be very cautious at that time. And we want to live consciously. We want to make decisions. We want to live according to some higher standard. We don't want to be at the mercy either of these external objects and senses or of the mind itself. Until that mind is purified, then we have to fight the mind. Swami said, people will say, well, it's natural. He said it's natural. Spiritual life means fighting nature. We have to fight these natural tendencies of the mind. Natural tendencies doesn't mean helpful in spiritual life. It means that everybody faces it. There's something natural about it that comes with the human body and all of that. It doesn't mean that it's helpful for us. So we do battle. So this is why the Gita has this whole setting in the battlefield. That we do battle with the mind that way. But easier to be nice to the mind. Say, I'll give you something tastier. Yeah, rather than just fighting all the time, we give it something higher. Okay, then verse 64. Did we do 63?
No. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, there were two verses together. 62 and 63 were together. Okay. I'm just trying to figure it out. Where would be a good place to stop so that we have another session? Okay. Raga dosha viyuktaistu Vishrayan indriyascharan Abnavashayat vidheyatma prasadam adhigachyati. Okay, now we're going to get a whole section, this prasada section. I love this section. This word prasada, we'll get to that. It's very beautiful. That here it says that, okay, what is our mind doing? It's wandering. It's wandering among sense objects. That means the mind is outgoing. It's charan. It says, now, if these senses, or raga dvesha viyukta, okay, so the mind and everything, if it's free from raga dvesha. Now, raga dvesha, attraction and aversion. This is the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is that there will be things that it likes and things that it doesn't like, and we spend our whole life running after things that we like, raga, and avoiding things that we don't like, dvesha. Now we learned the secret earlier, huh? What's the secret? To like everything, huh? Yeah. Or to be indifferent. Huh? So to be free from that. Anyhow, at the very least we can say we shouldn't have strong likes and dislikes. And we shouldn't confuse fact with opinion. Very often people will say, you give them something to eat, and there's coffee, they'll say, that is a horrible coffee. Yeah. And I'll say, oh, you mean you don't like it? Yeah. So one thing is our opinion, and the other is that we think, whatever my opinion is, that's the fact of it all. Shobai moni kori, amar ghadi thik chule. Everybody thinks my watch keeps the right time. Thakur used to say. Yeah, so... Yeah, everybody thinks that. So that means what my opinion is corresponds to fact. Yeah, everybody else is wrong. The Swami Turiyananda, he made a beautiful statement, very, very important statement. He was in Shanti Ashrama at the time. And this Ujjwala, this young devotee was there, and he was talking to her. And suddenly he said to her, something about, do you live in dreams or do you live in reality? Something like that. And then he said, Ujjwala, he said, when it comes to opinion, flow like the river. And when it comes to principle, be firm as a rock. Yeah? And she said that made the whole difference in my whole life. So it's very important to know when something is just an opinion, that this is just my feeling, my attitude, and that I can be very flexible. That even what my opinion is today may change tomorrow. I may have an opinion of somebody, I think, oh, this person is very egotistical. Then I realize, no, the person is very simple. Huh? They don't mind just talking about themselves a little bit, not because they're boastful, they're just very simple people, and we get to like them. Actually, many people, when they first met Narendra, who is this fellow? He's sitting in the corner whistling a song and everything, not looking at anybody else. How stuck up he is and everything. And then later they got to know him. Look at this person who I thought was like that. It was Sharat Maharaj. He had that experience the first time he saw him. That he had met him first, and then later he saw Sri Ramakrishna talking about this, Narendra, and he said, oh, it's that same person. And then he talked to him, and he realized, what a wonderful person. So our opinions can change. Yeah. And our likes and dislikes, all of these things can change. Why did I start talking about this? Ragadvesha, yeah. So, having strong likes and strong dislikes really get us into trouble. So if we can, even things that we don't like, so we don't like it. What does that mean? Does that mean that we can't do it and we can't be useful and helpful? We're not going to like everything. We want to try to like everything, of course. But it's all a question of controlling the mind. If I don't like to do something, that means probably others don't like to do it. I'll save them the trouble. We have all different ways of looking at things. Yeah. And if I like it, then why not sacrifice and let somebody else enjoy it? It's such a wonderful thing. So, those who have very strong likes and dislikes are very opinionated. They're never happy in life. This is the whole thing. People are very selfish. They're never happy in life. So even if from a very self-centered point of view, I want to be happy in life, what's the best thing? Not to always get what I want. Be free from likes and dislikes.
Exactly.
Be free from selfishness. You know, this was the key for Swamiji. Swamiji emphasized selflessness more than anything else. God himself is selflessness. He said if we can be perfectly selfless, then that means we've reached perfection. That was really the one quality he liked more than any other. Self-sacrifice, selflessness, to do everything for the other person, not care for ourselves, anything like that. Selflessness was the highest virtue for Swamiji. And the selfless person is the happy person.
Really?
Of course. No, sir, you'll never find a selfish person who's happy. It may look like it, but
unhappy.
Impossible. Impossible. And those who are perfectly selfless, they won't even, you ask them, are you happy? I never thought about it. Yeah. Olina, can you memorize something? They alone live who live for others.
That's
you know that. The rest are more dead than alive.
That was, who said that?
Swamiji wrote this in one of his letters. He said, the vanities of this world are transitory, but they alone live who live for others. The rest are more dead than alive. Yeah.
And
so live for others.
One school written there on the top of the school.
Yeah.
Who live for others, they live all the time.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah. So if we can forget about what I like and what I don't like, and think about the other person and everything, then we're free from all of these. So if we can do that, and if we can be Atmavashya, that means that we have some control. Atma is a funny word. It can mean one with the Brahman, it can mean the mind, it can mean the body, it can mean all of these things. It can mean just one's own self. So Atmavashya. So if we can do all of that, then we can wander among sense objects. No problem.
Because
nothing will happen.
Right.
Yeah. So Thakur says this world it's like a thorny forest. But you put some shoes on, and you can walk anywhere. The thorns won't bother you that way. So this is that same type of thing. Then prasadam adhivachyati. What is this prasadam that we attain to? Adhigachyati. What is this prasadam? What is the meaning of prasadam here?
What is the meaning of
calmness of mind.
Calmness of mind. Okay. Guna?
Constant flow of happiness, or it's not even happiness.
Okay. What is the name? Kali Prasad, Ram Prasad. What does it mean?
That means Prasad there means offering something that has been offered, what God has given.
Grace.
Contentment.
Yeah, grace, by the grace of God. Kali Prasad is the grace of Mother Kali. Yeah. This word prasad, prasidati, prasanna. We have so many different variations of this word. Literally it means sitting facing towards. So it means, say the Divine Mother, she'll turn and sit facing us. That means showering her grace on us. This prasada. So really we'll see, we'll get these different verses, prasanna chetas, that this is the grace of the mind. Thakur talks about the grace of the mind. So grace, here it'll have all these layers of meaning. One, of course, this prasada means the mind is very transparent, translucent. The light of divinity shines through it, nothing blocking it. So we attain to that state of perfect peace and calmness and a translucent state where there's nothing distorting reality. And it's a state of grace. The state of grace. Thakur, he used to quote this song. There's a Bengali song that says, you can have the grace of the Guru, you can have the grace of the Vaishnavas, the grace of the devotee, you can have the grace of God, but without the grace of that one, Ekardvaya, without the grace of that one, everything is dust and ashes. What is that one? The mind. The grace of the mind. So what does it mean, the grace of the mind?
Happiness. Proshido bhavo. Proshido bhavo.
Yeah.
Happiness.
Be gracious, O Mother.
Right.
Proshido bhavo.
Proshido bhavo.
Yeah. That mind which is perfectly pure. That mind which is perfectly pure, it'll be peaceful. That mind which allows the divinity to shine through. That mind which is perfectly sattvic. That mind which is full of love and compassion. That mind which sees no difference among people. Which sees divinity everywhere. That mind which will tell us what is right and what is wrong. Which will tell us what to do. The mind itself becomes the antaryamin. That's the grace of the mind. When the mind is free from desires, free from passions, free from all of that, then that mind is divine. That mind is the Guru. That mind is Satchidananda. That mind becomes perfect. That pure mind, Thakur says what? Pure mind and pure buddhi, and the same is the Atman, pure Atman. Is the same. So one attains if we can live in the world. So here it's not saying that you have to go into a deep mountain cave or anything. If we can live in the world,
Right.
that means wandering among the sense objects in this forest fire of the world. If we can live there in such a way that we're free from likes and dislikes, that nothing can attract me, that means I'm free. Nothing can repel me, that means I'm free. Nothing in this world can have any effect over me. I am free. I can embrace everything. I can reject everything. Doesn't matter. I'm free. So that's prasad. Then one attains to this state of perfect peace, perfect clarity, perfect grace. So if we have, what is the grace of God? Grace of God, of course, that can be anything. By the grace of God, we're born at a certain time, in a certain family, all of these things. The grace of the devotee, other people are well-wishers helping us. The grace of the Guru. We may even have blessings to the great soul. But if the mind won't cooperate with us, then we have nothing. Mind is the key thing. Even with all of the possible advantages that we have, we're born into a family of devotees. We have access to scripture, holy company, all of that. If the mind won't cooperate, then dust and ashes. Then anybody know that song? Anybody know that song? Anyhow, I don't remember. But it's a Vaishnava song. No. Anyhow, it's this one, Ekar Doya Navale. If you don't have the grace of that one. So Hari Chari Jaya or something. Yeah. That.
Guru Krishna.
Yeah. Guru Krishna Vaishnava. Something. Oh, yeah. Yeah, something like that.
না তুমি কবিতাটাই বলো
Yeah, some poem. Anyhow.
মনে যদি দয়া না হয় তাহলে কিছু হবে না.
Yes. Ekar Doya. It doesn't say the mind even. It says of the one. If without the grace of that one, Ekar Doya, Binay, something like that. Chari Khariya. So everything goes to the dust and ashes or something like that. Yeah. So we need this grace of the mind. And so we'll get this in several different versions of it. This idea, prasanna chetas, and this. It comes up in other prasade sarva dukhanam. Yeah, these verses are very beautiful. So let's do the next one, and then we can stop if any little time for a few questions. So this one says, but by perceiving objects with the organs, that means we're living in the world. We're wandering in the midst. We have no fear of attachment. We have no fear. At that point, it's like the huge tree, you can tie the elephant to it. With the organs, with the senses, we're free from attraction and repulsion, or under his own control. So we have self-control over mind. This self-controlled person attains, here it says serenity, prasad, serenity. But it's such a beautiful prasanna. This, prasanna. And prasanna vadana, for a holy mother. Her face is showing grace to us. I mean, mother, turn, shine your face on me.
Right.
So this, and prasanna means that the mother has been propitiated. That we've pleased her. And that benign glance is upon us. Prasada. It's such a beautiful word. Yeah. So I'll read this next one. Prasade. So once we've attained to this prasad, what happens when the mind becomes calm and peaceful? Sarva dukhanam haniye. This all misery and suffering and everything disappears. Why? Because misery and suffering are in the mind. It doesn't mean that there won't be physical bodily pain. And we can do anything. The mind is in a state of calmness and peacefulness. So, Sara Dukhanam Hanir Asya Upajayate. So, with all this misery and problems and everything in life, they disappear. Prasanna Chetaso Hyashu. So prasanna chetas, that mind that has achieved this state of grace. That means it's in a state of grace. Not that the grace is coming from someplace else. The mind is in a state of grace. Sometimes we feel that. We may not know why. We'll be sitting we'll be thinking, and yes, some stillness will come. When we feel complete, we feel content. We don't need anything, we don't want anything. We have no regrets about anything. Just the mind is in the mood. This state of grace has come upon it. So this is when it's permanent. When it's permanent. So someone who has this prasanna chetas, someone whose heart is filled to the brim with contentment. Then what happens? Buddhi paryavatishtate. So then his buddhi, then this wisdom becomes perfectly fixed. So there's another definition of Sthitaprajna. Somebody who has attained that state. Is really, everything is the state of the mind. Monni ekota. Thakur had this expression, Shod monni ekota. Everything is a question of the mind. It's not a question of external things. Our happiness, our sadness, all of this is all a question of the mind. External things, of course, are catalyst, and we may have to do a lot of hard work before we reach the point where the mind is very peaceful and calm in the midst of all problems and everything. But that's the test for the Sthitaprajna. So when there is serenity, prasade, when there is serenity, there follows the complete elimination of all sorrow. Because it's just actually, if suffering and everything is up to us. We choose to do it. Even suppose somebody starts criticizing us, and do we have any choice whether we want to get insulted or not?
No.
Absolutely, we have a choice. You may say to me, "Oh, what a fool you are!" Right? Now, do I have to get insulted? I may say, "Of course, I'm a fool. I know that. I'm not insulted." You can't insult somebody who doesn't get insulted. Yeah. You can criticize them, you can yell at them, but that's our choice, whether we want to feel insulted or not.
But Maharaj, it's better to ignore her?
Why should I ignore her? I love her.
If somebody says something bad to me, so I have to ignore that thing?
You don't have to. I mean, you can either you can say yes, it's true, or you can say. You can think, that's what that person thinks. Yeah. How does that affect me? Yeah. Right. What should I bother? Lok na pok.
Yeah. What did you say?
Lok na pok. Thakur, there's another expression. Lok na pok.
Lok na pok.
Na pok.
Pok means
insect.
Insect.
It's an insect. Lok na pok. Should I think that this is a person criticizing me, or is it like a little gnat that's coming in and annoying me a little bit? What do I care? Lok na po. No, but the point is, there's a story of Buddha that somebody came and started yelling and saying all sorts of things to him and everything, and the Buddha was not at least perturbed or anything, and then he said to him, "Let me ask you a question. Suppose I want to give you something and you refuse to accept it. Where does it go? It'll remain with you." And he said, "Yes, you've tried to throw all of these awful things to me. I'm not accepting it." So we have to participate in these things. In order for an insult to be an insult, I have to participate. I have to get offended. If I don't get offended and then I wasn't insulted, then it wasn't an insult. That's all. Very simple. So the mind, we have to understand this power of the mind, that if the mind says, "No, I refuse to get upset," why should I get upset over that?
Right.
If people will say things, that's all right. I can't control that. That's their idea. It's okay. I don't mind. Not everyone will love me. Some people will say bad things about me, I know that.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, what do I care? I mean, if someone I respect very much, then of course I think, I must have done something, let me talk to that person. But otherwise, you shouldn't pay too much attention. So, anyhow, the state of prasada is that mind which will, prasada, it can also mean cheerfulness. Huh? It can mean a cheerful mind.
Cheerful mind.
That mind which remains full of light.
Prasanna.
Yeah, prasanna. So, we'll stop here in this verse, and we're up to verse 66. Huh?
65.
66 now.
We just did 65. Huh?
Yes.
So we'll start with 66. Anyone like to say anything or ask any questions?
Is this the goal of
Microphone.
Is this the goal of sadhana, to be calm and peaceful?
You know, Thakur says that the only goal of life is God realization. But when we look very carefully, he will explain how different people on a different spiritual path will have a slightly different understanding of the goal of life. For some people, the goal of life is only devotion. For some people, the goal of life is only to sacrifice ourselves for the sake of others. They won't care about their own personal peace or calmness. For some people, the goal of life will be attained to this state. For some people, it will be to attain the state of wisdom. For some people, it will be just to get out of this life. I don't want to be born again. So we would like to think that we're doing this for some higher type of realization, but that this peace will come along with it. That will be part of the whole thing. So whether we say that that's the reason why I'm doing the spirit. Many people will say that. Why do you meditate? I want peace. Other people, why do you meditate? I want to realize God. And knowing that realizing God may mean that I go through a state of perfect pain. This vyakulata is a very painful experience. It is a complete anguish. So painful that Thakur wanted to kill himself.
Thakur wanted to kill him.
He wanted to kill himself.
Right.
Now, if I say that all I care about is peace of mind, I won't go through that type of path. If I say that I only want God realization and somebody says, it may mean that you'll pass through this terrible agony. Were you willing to do it? Yes, I'm willing to do anything for God realization. So everyone is a little different. The path of devotion is a little different, path of knowledge is a little different. Those who, the path of Raja Yoga, then they may think, yes, I want to realize that peace that lies within. So there's not one simple answer to that. I think if we analyze our own minds, we'll find that we're driven by different things. Some people are driven with this idea that I must know the truth, no matter what. That is Buddha. That I can't bear to live this life, calling things by wrong names and living a life of lies and pretending I'm happy when I'm not happy and living just for enjoyment one day to the next. I have to find some deeper truth in life. So everyone will express this goal of life differently. But Thakur, what he really means is there has to be some goal of life that is something eternal and lasting and beyond simply these transitory enjoyments of life.
Couple of songs.
Oh, yeah, songs. Good.